right, Blair, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to start off with a little bit background of me and then a little bit background of the actual event Artini, and then I'll kind of jump into how we then took it virtual, and then I'll end with the results. So I have been a volunteer committee member of Allied Arts in general for about 5 years now. I started as the co-chair of Artini this year and actually got hired on to do their events back in October. I have been planning events, weddings, corporate events for the last 5-ish years. So that, with my love of arts, just really brought me into a good position for their event planning. So we started with Artini 17 years ago, and it's grown. So this would have been our 17th year. It is a martini tasting live art auction event, and we usually hold it at the farmers market with about 800 to 1,000 people in attendance. And it's usually in the March, April time every year. So this year we were planning to have it on March 27th. And I think, as you guys know, we went into quarantine about March 13th-ish. So we made that call to move it then to June 26th, which would have been here in a couple weeks. With the, gaining of COVID and learning a little bit more of where we were standing in early March, early April, we made the decision to then move it virtually to May 1. We made that call in middle of April, so we had about 2 weeks to completely flip the event. So I'll kind of walk you through what that looked like. So what we had kind of started with, of course, a lot of people here and a lot of people in nonprofits have boards that have to go through agreements and kind of decide on events as well beyond what I can control. So we gave it to the board. I was looking at the date exactly, and I think it was April 15th. So that truly is 2 weeks before we would take it live, that we had to go to executive board and get their approval to then move it up from June 26th to then May 1st. And the reason that we did that is because phase 2 was going live May 1, and we really didn't know what that was going to look like in this thought of people getting out and about, what they felt like their safety was. All that we did know is that June 26th really wasn't going to allow for 800 to 1,000 people being in the same room with each other safely. 2, we have martini tasting in small bites from 11 different restaurants. Like, there's no way that we were going to be able to regulate that from people sharing and grabbing and being in close quarters with each other. So we just felt like regardless, we had to move it up. So we wanted to really keep people, though, at home. So virtual, of course, as you know, is changing day by day, but a lot of it was like we just got to catch this at-home audience to really make this successful. And I'll kind of talk about that for future events too after this. So we decided to keep the Friday night and the time frame of the event, specifically because we wanted to give people a time frame of bidding. Our event is heavy on live art auction, so we have about 130 pieces from local artists. So we wanted to keep that time frame and just to keep kind of the momentum up for the event and for those bidding prices. Before any of that could get started, we had to go back to our roots and figure out what was happening with our sponsorship. So luckily for us, our event was fully funded because we were only 2 weeks away from it going live when we decided to move it. So we were just needing to make sure that those sponsors kept put. So when looking through expenses, and I'll kind of walk through this with those that have multiple events throughout the year, we were able to move some of our expense dollars from maybe rentals and or using a band into holding those for future events. So if you're having to move an event to virtual, I would highly suggest you reach out to your vendors and say, can we use this as a credit? Can I use it for something in the fall and or even make potentially next year? A lot of people are being very flexible. They don't want to refund you because they're not in the position to do that, but they are in a position to help you use those funds in another place. So we were able to get our expenses down. And if we were able to keep our sponsorships where they stood, we were then able to give the artists 100% back of their commission, which we traditionally do not do. We either allow them to take 50% or allow them to give 100% back to Allied Arts. So that was a good opportunity to then sell our sponsors into staying. Of course, COVID alone and our mission of giving back to arts was a good sell, but these are individual artists that may be getting highly affected from COVID. So we were hoping that that was a good sell for them to stay put. So we had everyone stay, besides one that just moved their sponsorship to next year, which was fine by us. Again, it wasn't a refund, it was just a movement of money. So with that, we were then able to talk to our artists, see if they were able to stay in a virtual type atmosphere. And then again, tell them you get 100% of what you sell. So this is great. We haven't been able to do it this year. It was a good stewardship opportunity for Allied Arts, just to show that we were able to give back even more to our local community that isn't just our member agencies. So then you kind of have a trickle down effect of who you're talking to. So one, sponsorship's good to go. Artists, they're in. Restaurants, we of course wanted to help them. So we reached out to our restaurants that were already going to be participating. And we thought it would be a fun idea for them to do a virtual cocktail for someone to then enjoy on that Friday night event in that 3-hour time period. So we provided them everything they needed. We gave them an Instacart gift card. We dropped off the vodka that we were using from our sponsorship of Tito's and just said, anything you need besides actually making that cocktail, we'd like to provide you so that you're not out any expenses in that as well. Again, stewardship opportunity for restaurants. And then we turned it back around to say, we'd also like to share a message, whatever that may be from you. So use us as a platform on social media to say what you want to say. So whether that be reopening opportunities, if they had a relief fund that they wanted people to give to, et cetera, et cetera. I will say that I wish we had more restaurants being able to participate, but of course we knew that they were in tough times and were having to lay off employees. So we only had a few participate, which we totally understood. Then it was an opportunity for us so that we had our sponsorships in line, our artists and our restaurants to then reach out to the general public. We had an idea, and creative ideas virtually is just something that is what we have to be doing right now. Without being in person, you aren't going to see all that artwork details, and you aren't going to see, you're just going to see it on a little box on the technology or the hand bid platform that we use for the bidding. So we asked that the artists do a video and post it from one, their social media, because they already have the followers and the interest, and then two, that we were going to then repost it. They just had to tag us. So it was like, tell us a little bit about yourself, show the detail of the art, because someone may then choose to bid on it because they saw the size of it, they saw the color of it, and they saw the texture of it. Huge response. We probably had about 90% of the artists do that. One, they get 100%, so it's a selling method for them. And two, they just got to talk about themselves and learn about. And me personally, I bought a piece and was direct messaging them on Instagram. Like, we're now saying happy birthday to each other and, you know, checking in on each other. And it's just a cool way to interact with something that you're spending quite a bit of money on for artwork. That is one thing that we will take into future years. We had never done that before, and I think it was a great success for us to take. And you'll find that with some of these virtual opportunities that you may not go back to what you did before, because the virtual is so convenient and so flexible and providing just extra opportunities for people to participate. The one thing I want to jump back to, sorry, on sponsorships too, we had to alter what we had been giving them as, you know, a trade for their sponsorship, whether that be an event, because we had a photo booth sponsor, we had a band sponsor. So we flipped that and gave them extra digital advertising. So we also allowed them, depending on what tier of sponsorship they were, individual posts, individual highlights, multiple different posts throughout the week, but really hit hard that week before our teenie, one, to get the message out to our general public that it had moved up, you're seeing the artwork. And if anyone was getting our correspondences, it was an overload, I'll tell you that. We did emails, we did calls, a lot of social media, and just a lot of reminders through Eventbrite, which we did our ticketing platform, through Handbid, which was our bidding platform, all different types of reaching through that, different types of media. So really that's kind of the steps of action that we took to get the event live. We had to do a lot of education for the bidding app that we were using. This will be our 3rd year that we were using it, even so, regardless of if people have come year over year, we are going to have new bidders. Typically, we don't allow general public to be a part of the bidding system. You at least have to buy a ticket. This year, we just kind of let our gates down and go, anyone that wants to participate, we'd love to have you. Again, it's more of that giving back rather than making on this situation. So we had to do quite a bit of education that way if you're using a bidding platform, which I highly suggest, because people were able just to do it from the comfort of their home, and it's very exciting because you're getting outbid and want to bid towards it. But we decided to change. I don't know if anyone's doing still the traditional platform of writing down or taking raffle tickets, but we moved everything digital. So we typically have raffle packages that we just turned into silent auction items, so that the bidding system was just the same as the live auction for the artwork. We'll probably continue doing that just because you get a little bit more value out of that, your raffle items, rather than being them tickets and maybe getting not enough tickets for the price, for the value of the item that you worked so hard to get. So we'll probably just continue doing that moving forward. And then ticket holders, of course, we did ask them to consider their ticket as a donation. We had about 25% asked for a refund, which was, again, fine by us, because with the sponsorships and the low expenses, we already knew that we were going to be good in a financial spot to then give back to 100% to the artist. So we weren't too worried. All of those were extra items that would just be benefit to us if they were to stay. So the event, I'll kind of go to the live event. We have typically, and this might get a little confusing, but we had the tickets, like the actual tickets, go through hand bid last year. So our numbers are a little skewed because they came through Eventbrite this year. But active bidders, we had about 450 active bidders in 2019, and we had about 400 active bidders this year. So, you know, not a big difference of people getting involved. And I'll say, I think we had a little bit more of a defined audience because they did have to take those extra steps to log into our bidding system rather than having their ticket already a part of it. So we already knew they were kind of qualified buyers, I guess, if I should say, just because they had to take those extra steps. We turned the auction on at 7 o'clock with a 10 o'clock end time. We hit our goal in 15 minutes because people were so active on turning it on and being on Friday night and being stuck in their home. So we were blown away by the activity that we got, and it was just amazing. And it was very exciting, and people were posting during the event and showing the things that they were bidding on, and artists were talking about it because they could see that their artwork was getting bidded on. It was, I don't want to say nationwide because we really didn't, we didn't condone people bidding without being able to pick up in state. But we did have some pieces that went out to Texas, Chicago, I think Arkansas maybe. So we had people that weren't able to be there for the live event and even in town to be bidding on the artwork. So very exciting, very surprised. I think we were kind of in the understanding that we may not be matching our in-person goals, but I think the more and more we see these virtual events, the more they're either hitting their goal or exceeding it just because of the flexibility of the event. So overall kind of numbers, and I'll kind of give you a 2019 and even 2018. 2019 was a little bit lower year for us. And then 2018 was a good one to compare to. So we typically make about $40,000 in art sales. And no, that means that we have to give 50% typically back to the artist. We were able to raise over $60,000 this year and give it all back to the artist. So that was huge. $20,000 in extra income is amazing, and just felt good to give it back to the people in need. We take about 120 to 130 pieces of art. We typically walk away with 25 to 35 that don't get bid on in the live event. We had 9 this year that didn't have any bids. And I will say it's because they had pretty high minimum bids. So our teeny event too is for a young professional kind of group. It's thrown by our young professional catalyst group. So we try to keep the artwork pretty affordable. You know, we have Opus in the fall that is more of a black tie event and has more expensive auction items. So this one's kind of in your median range, I guess I should say. So having 9 not sold, amazing. Like, we were, again, shocked by that. But also it's because I think we allow those floodgates to open and allow just anyone to bid. Our net income for 2018 in our teeny, and that's, remember, I'm comparing to 2018 because it's more comparable for this year, was $66,000, and our net income this year was a little over 70, which is amazing because, one, those expenses were low, our sponsors stayed, our ticket holders gave, and we had some that silent auction items still come through. So overall, if we were able to count in those art sales towards, if we were to say, let's throw 50% into that number, we'd be at about $110,000, which is $30,000 over any past year, which is just unreal. And we are very excited about that and just trying to learn about what takes from this virtual aspect and how we turn it into 2021. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. So obviously we learned this year that opening the auction into everyone bidding allows for us our reach to expand, of course. So we're going to consider a virtual Artini ticket next year. You don't want to come to the event. You don't want to come to the, like, you're not into large groups. Okay, so maybe we'll charge you a $25, $50 ticket to then just get bidding availability. So that might be something to consider in your ticket options. And if people want to still give back and they're into auction items, consider a virtual ticket. It will be much lower than your in-person ticket. Of course, the artists showing off their artwork, I think that was a huge sell. They got to talk to their audience first, and then we reshared to our audience. They already have people that love their artwork and want to buy. If they felt like people wanted to support them at that time, this was the opportunity. We'll do it again. And because if anyone wants to buy the artwork and they can also give back to charity, that's a, you know, win-win situation. I think that's kind of wrapping it all up. Sorry, that was a lot of information. I have a lot of thoughts too. We are planning a fall event, Opus, in October. We're already kind of working on our sponsorships on how to make those different to help the virtual side of things. Like I said, if you want to stay home, consider a virtual ticket. Consider larger donations, whatever your event may be, customize it to what could be turned virtually. So we've been talking with people that may have a beer event rather than our martini event. So allow them to have at-home tastings. Just create it the week before or provide delivery, and then allow them into your either live stream of the event, depending on what that looks like, and or, like I said, if you have auction items bidding, then into that bidding system. We are even considering, and I'll get in kind of the virtual, what I'm learning in marketing is too, is virtual events need to be extremely shorter than an in-person event. I would say anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And I know that sounds really, really short, but people just don't have the capacity to watch something at that time. If they're at home, they're going to be busy doing other things, but try to make it as entertaining as possible with whatever live entertainment you're considering to be short and sweet. And also, I don't want to say higher end, but like from a more prominent group that might create its own interest in that sense. And then that way you can kind of get across. The bidding system is probably the best thing for anyone to get involved in because it's constantly on their phone, just telling them if they're interested on something. It's not something they have to be watching at one point. They'll get alerts and they'll get outbid and they'll just be able to scroll it once or twice, bid on stuff, and then continually get reminders. So I suggest that for sure on really moving forward anywhere at an event because they don't have to go check in on a raffle sheet. So that's kind of overall in our teeny. Again, we were lucky to catch that at home. We were lucky to be able to turn it in 2 weeks. It was not an easy feat, but we had a great committee. We have a great team here at Allied Arts, so appreciated all of that. And of course, our sponsorships were the biggest ones to allow us to give back to the arts group. So it definitely felt a great win for that, especially during this time of uncertainty and of course being affected so severely. Okay, sorry for all of that.
I want to foot stomp what you did with the artists on Instagram because I think that was very pivotal to your success. I hosted an event several years ago, and we had a prominent artist create a piece of art, and the feedback I got afterwards was from his collectors, we wish we'd have known, we would have really bid for that piece. And so I think you're absolutely right. Knowing that community, that was a really smart thing you guys did. Way to go.
Yes, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Blair? You can put them in the chat box or unmute yourself.
I have one. Blair, can you say again what the name of the digital platforms were that you used? Did you say Eventbrite for tickets?
Yes, and so I'll tell you a little bit about Eventbrite. We wanted to use them, one, because they have their built-in system of reminders and calendar invites and things like that. So we worked with their back-end system. I'm telling you, they are the easiest people to work with. We had to deal with, obviously, quite a few refunds. Like I said, I think we're about 25% refunds. They actually instilled a COVID release so that the buyer got even back their fees, the $4 fee. So they came back at a completely zero. And that was, again, COVID's a special time. But they were really easy to work with. They work well with your social platforms. And they kind of take the work off your staff of reminders and things like that. You could send emails to all your ticket holders. Really recommend using them if you're doing individual tickets. Very easy to manage. Also, they have an app on your phone for check-in. So all you have to do is scan that barcode, and if they don't have it, you just look up their name and claim their tickets. We obviously, with 800 to 1,000 people, ran into the worst check-in of getting those people through the door. And we had done it for a previous event, and it was cake. Like I highly suggest it. And then your volunteers just download the app, they scan it on their phone, and they're in seconds, especially if you're thinking of a large crowd. Now, HandBid is the app that we use for the bidding system. There is a fee associated with that, but I would just build it into your expenses of the event. It's not anything huge. It's you back end, put in the images and the descriptions, and you allow people you set your max bids and your low bids, and it's very easy to use as well.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I'd love to hear kind of the events you guys are kind of planning, if they've moved, what kind of ideas you guys are kind of kicking around to make it virtual and successful, if anyone wants to share that.
Anybody in the process?
Yeah, we are just now starting to get into gear for our big event, which is in November, early November. Mm-hmm. And that's right in that spot of like, we might get an in-person event, or we might not. And again, we're kind of having to deal with the idea of, all right, so if it looks like we can have an in-person event, being a healthcare organization at SSM Health thing, is that bad optics trying to cram a bunch of people into a room if there's still information out there saying social distance and all of that. So we're trying to figure out what we want to do for
sure.
November. And we're attending things like this today to try to see what other people are doing. And we were very interested in hearing what you did, because we know that you were, you were like the first guinea pig that we were aware of.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're still one of the first larger events that went virtual, but like I said, we have that event in October, so we're kind of playing with the same idea. A suggestion is just to create in-person versus virtual, like every tier of sponsorship that you had, just give it a virtual option, however you can do that best. And that way, if October does come around or November comes around and you aren't able to have it, you already have your virtual aspect in place. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a matter of moving around your in-person expenses, like I said. Because I agree, you're going to have to kind of expect that maybe in the fall, and hopefully it just, knock on wood, you can just keep going the way you wanted.
I'm Gail Wilcox with Envision Success for Veterans, and we just launched a virtual fun run. It's a 5K and a 1 mile dash, and basically people will sign up and they'll get a run bib and a t-shirt, and they would run on their own. They can run it over a span of several days. The actual run dates are from the 14th to the 30th of this month. And then at the end, when they say, yes, we completed that mileage and here's the time we did it, then they would get a commemorative coin, which because we're veterans, that's the coins are something that's exchanged quite often. And so we haven't gotten a huge response yet. Basically, we're using Facebook, but we've also sent out PSAs, and we think that it's a good way for people to get up off the couch. So several of us have gotten real sedentary over this time period. We're hoping people will get up and get moving. And this is our first one to do this way, but there's been several done by other organizations around the country. The other cool thing is it doesn't matter where you are, you can still participate in this run. And so that's one of the things we really liked about the idea. So I'll report back if we get any response from it. But we're hoping that people that are part of our organization and friends and family around the country will participate, and we can raise at least a little bit of money to start off with. We
That's
had
great.
scheduled.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the results.
Yeah. This Saturday, we were supposed to have a community event, which is called Norman Summer Nights, but we've had to cancel that one because we just don't, even though it's an outdoor event, we don't have the volunteers right now to be able to put it on. So, I do workshops, and that is also something that funds Envision Success. I do it with a different company though. And I've been doing it virtually until about the 15th. I had one where I had a virtual participants as well as an in the office, and that has worked pretty well. It's a little bit harder for people here, and the one problem I've had is that we haven't had as many participants as we have in our in-place ones, but part of that is because these are continuing education workshops, and the boards have said it doesn't matter how you get your continuing education, you can get them all online, and there are a lot of agencies that have free continuing ed, so a lot of people are using that, and that's understandable. So, but I think I'm going to continue to offer them virtually for people who want to do the virtual aspect of it. So.
Sure. I mean, I don't see why not, right? It's just a video, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, there's a lot of things that I think you will take and use in the future because it allows you to reach that audience that may just want to stay home.
Our board meetings, we've also been able to offer, like, we've got a couple people who physically be there, but they could step out where they're at for a moment and join in our board meeting, or take their lunch break in their car and join our board meeting, and we'll have it on Zoom as well as offering in-house seats. So our last board meeting was all on Zoom, and we've got one coming up, so it may be all on Zoom as well. So.
Blair, I have a question for you, and I think this would probably help the group as they plan their events. I was talking to the regional food bank yesterday, and one of the challenges for them is they use a large volunteer force, and I'm pretty sure you probably do to host events as well. How do you keep volunteers engaged when you go to a virtual event?
Sure. So for our team, we actually didn't. I mean, so typically we have about 60-ish almost volunteers for our team. It's such a big event to set up, especially with hanging all that art and putting up the art walls. If you've been in the past, we have about 40 4-foot by 8-foot walls that have to be put up with artwork and tables and all of that. So unfortunately, it's just communication to them that we hoped that they participated in the virtual event. Now, coming October, if we do the virtual way that we're going to do it, we're going to need them potentially at personal homes, helping with the technology that we're wanting to do for the event. So right now it's tough because our volunteers just aren't able to do a lot of the in-person, but we are also using them, of course, we started a COVID relief fund, using to help us with some calls. So we're asking that if we're not able to help them with events, if they could help at least get us, because I don't know that if you guys are aware, we had to extend our campaign to July 31st, which typically ends in early June, just to be able to give us a chance to make our campaign dollars. And then on top of that, we also started a COVID relief fund that was giving out money faster than the end of our campaign. So kind of engaging them in a different way than typically event related.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions for Blair?
Blair, you said something about making your number or making your goal in 15 minutes. Help me with that again. I mean, as far as what part of it, as in all the art was sold, or I
Sure.
mean, what happened in that 15 minutes?
Sorry, you're right. It was our art sales goal. So our goal was $40,000 for our art sales to match what we had done in years past. So we had hit $40,000 in 15 minutes, and we ended up with $60,000 in art sales this year. So I guess it's kind of tricky because the art sales typically go to our bottom line, but this year they did not. So because we gave it all away back to the people. So when I say that it's a goal that technically didn't matter to our bottom line, it was just a group goal that we wanted to hit.
It did matter to those artists.
I mean, it does. Yeah, of course, we didn't want to come out of this and go, well, we only did 20, so we were just ecstatic to be able to give it back, and then of course give a big number back. So we will hope to hit it again next year.
Question, Blair, is there anything you would have done differently, or what mistakes did you make that if you had to do over again, you could correct?
I think I wish I would have been able to do more for our sponsors. We had discussed multiple different ways of trying to get them. It's a lot of money that they're giving, and it's not a lot of get back that they got. So like we had invitations go out, of course they were on that. But a lot of them was in person. So like the photo booth and the band, like that's where they were going to get a lot of their credit. I don't know that we fulfilled that extremely to the virtual options as an in person, because they get to bring their people to the event and show off, right? Or talk about it, or, whatnot, get their credit out of that money that they gave us. We were wanting to bring them a present or get them a gift or do a cocktail martini kit. We just didn't feel like safe at the time for us to go out and buy the ingredients and get it together and then deliver to a house and encourage them to get together. We just didn't feel like at that time, especially on May 1, that it was the right thing to do. Of course, we are going to try to think of some later ideas of when we can all get back together of helping celebrate their success in the event as well, because we truly couldn't have done it without them. That's where I wish we could have given more credit to. But times are tricky, and we tried to flip as much as we could to give them the value. But I think we could have done more if it was available.
I've got one more. Sorry to hog the platform.
No, please do.
So kind of on the opposite side of that, what would you say are there, your one or two things that you think were really key to your success? I mean, I heard you talk about the marketing of it and just getting people in the room, so to speak, that night. Do you think that was a big part of it? And obviously you've got platforms that work seamlessly and good art and a good cause and everything else, but what do you think it was?
Yeah, I mean, technology was our friend on this. Thankfully, we had already done that bidding system 3 years before. Like, I don't know that we could have done this without already having that platform in place as fast as we did it. Of course, there are platforms out there that could be have done, but like there's just expenses in that and a quick decision that I'm glad we didn't have to make, because everyone should do a compare and contrast of all the bidding systems out there that would be worked well for them. Handbid just is one that we were already had in action, and we're going to use it for the in-person event anyways. So that's where we got lucky, I'll tell you that. But I think just the use of social and the use of email blast, and we didn't actually put anything out in the mail either, which maybe might have been that downfall that I talked about, because no one was getting mail at the time. You know, I think everyone's noticed their mail has significantly decreased. So our mail piece actually might have stuck out. We just weren't able to get something printed, mailed, you know, executed in a timely manner. So we had to use our digital efforts. Now, if we had 3 weeks, I totally would have done a mail piece to those that may not be on social media, or, you know, just maybe the older generation that we have as active bidders typically that are in person, that maybe not would have felt comfortable in the digital realm.
Great, thank you.
Did you record the event anywhere? I mean, is it linked up anywhere where you could go back and watch it?
So we didn't actually have anything to watch, and that's what I want to be very specific about.
I guess that was my follow-up question. So there was no like MC or video content or anything like that. It was just a
no. The event specifically too, which is different for a lot of events. Our event is mainly that live auction. We have a band that plays, you know, but we don't have any programming. Now our October event has programming. And so that's where I was kind of saying, like, we already had the discussion of going, we usually have 6 acts that perform at our cabaret performance. We'll probably drop it down to 3, and it'll be 15 minutes, and we'll go into the live auction bidding, which is those larger like trip packages type things. That's also something I meant to tell you. We pulled all inexperienced events from our auction packages. We had Maroon 5 tickets. We had Elton John tickets. We had some Thunder tickets. Granted, they don't have an expiration date. They weren't like for a specific date. So we kept those, and we got rid of but we're holding our energy tickets. Something to be very specific. We just did not want to risk those going out and upsetting the winner. All of them moved to later dates. So we'll just use them at a later date. We may do a, you know, fire auction one day and go, we've got Elton John tickets the week before, start bidding on them. And then that will go back to our teenies bottom line. So just something to consider, especially as for our October event. We're really looking at our auction packages and maybe decreasing the ones that go out of the country for a little while. And if we do them, like allow them to have expiration dates that last, you know, 1 to 2 years to use. So those are things to consider when you're looking at your auction packages. But we will be live streaming that October event, and we will probably have it that you could watch later. I just don't know. Like I said, I don't know that it would interest someone to watch later. It will be performances, and if you had a band, people's just attention levels are so low, and you know, it's hard to even watch a movie at home for 2 hours these days without getting distracted. So that's where I'm like, keep it short, to the point. If it's just background for them, fine. You know, like that's okay. That's why I think that where your money is being spent is the auction item. So make it as convenient as possible for them to do wherever they are.
Anybody have any additional questions? I have one more, and then I'm going to let you off the hook.
Okay, no, you're good. I'm fine.
How have you changed your stewardship of event donors? Have you made any adjustments for that?
So we sent out, of course, we always do the thank you letters and things like that. But I think what we really were able to say is that you gave back to 130 individual artists. And I think that was in our messaging to them from day one. And that's, again, like that selling point. Use whatever selling point you have and just drill it in, because that's what we did. What I think was really cool too is a lot of the artists sent thank you letters too. or provided it with their art piece when getting delivered. Not that we asked them to do that, but that's kind of where our stewardship goes. And of course, just a reminder that we hope to be in person next year. Because I think that's what's really important about all these virtual events. People go to events to be social. Your cause is of course important, that's why they're there, but they're also there to see and do and taste and have a night out. We are competing with 4 other events on the October date for our Opus. So I'm very curious to see, 1, how that affects us, and 2, how it affects others, and just, are people in a 450 crowd environment or are we not? So in that sense, we're all learning together on the different ways that we're doing an event from scratch starting now.
I think that's an excellent point, and that's the reason that we want to continue to do these kinds of networking opportunities, so that you guys can learn from each other and, you know, kind of have a safe space to try out ideas and really think through problems that you might be facing. So I thank you for being our first guest, Blair, and sharing all the lessons learned.
You're welcome.
And doing it in such a gracious way. So thank you so much. And for all of you guys who attended today, was this helpful? Do you want us to continue to do this? Are there additional topics that you'd like us to cover? Please feel free to send me an email and tell me what things are of interest to you and your teams as we kind of come out of post-pandemic fundraising and volunteer management and program management. And there's just a lot of things that won't look the same. And as we really navigate what our new normal looks like, as we continue to offer the same services and you know, support that we have to the community, we want to make sure that we're helping you guys with the work that you're doing. So definitely send me a note. Let me know if a monthly meeting is helpful to you until we can all be at the ballpark again. We'd love to have you back as soon as it's safe to do so. But we really do appreciate you all attending today, and really want to hear your feedback. So let your voices be heard. And you know, if there's something we can do, if you're having an event like you, Gail, please shoot it to Sam or myself, and we'll make sure that we share it and highlight it on our social media platforms. We would love to amplify the good works that you're doing, so please don't ever hesitate to let us know. And can we get a screenshot of everybody? Because you guys are the first. We want to make sure we, you know, commemorate this. And Sam's going to take our picture.
All right, everybody smile. Get it. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Got it. Thanks, guys.
Well, again, thank you for attending today. And we're going to give you 13 minutes of your day back. And that's so thank you guys so much. And I'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
everyone.
again.
Bye.
Thank you.